Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another episode of Fairycember. Today I will be drawing a fairy of the Evergreen, which was just kind of a fancy term for saying a Christmas tree fairy, but I definitely wanted this list to be something that could be created for at least as many prompts as possible outside of Christmas, and I wanted the fairies to be something I could draw that was like kind of like a nod towards the Christmas fairies, but also something that the drawing wouldn't be like completely outdated as soon as Christmas is over. For this one, I was originally thinking of doing something very woodsy and something very tree-like, kind of like a tree fairy, and you totally could do that if you wanted to, but every time I tried to sketch something out, it just wasn't working, so I ended up going for kind of more Christmas tree-esque fairy for this drawing, but I still really like it. When it came to do the colors, I also ended up picking very Christmassy colors. I went with a dark green and a dark red, but they were a lot more of an earthy green and red. So I was hoping that it wouldn't be too like bam in your face, this is a Christmas drawing. And I really like how she turned out. I love how like her hair had come out, and I thought her pose was really cute, and I put a little branch behind her. Most of the other fairies don't really have any background, but I felt like the branch was really helpful for her, and I didn't want her to be floating in nothingness. When it came to the colors, I did want to pick colors that were really close in tone, but I do worry that there wasn't enough like darker and lighter variation of the colors, so that's definitely something I could work on in the future, but I do think in general it looked really nice. When it came to coloring her skin color, I always kind of default to light color skin tone, pretty much because I do have light color skin tone and it's just the default that comes to mind. But as I was laying out the colors and like comparing them and see what worked well, I really thought like a dark, like rich chocolatey type brown color would work really well. So I decided to use, after testing a whole bunch of my markers, the E57 and E59, which are kind of my go-to like rich browns, because I feel like the other colors that I usually use for skin tones, for darker skin tone, aren't really like rich enough for what I was kind of feeling like I wanted to go for. And these seem like they're just nice. I also use these colors for maybe like a leather kind of color. So I really like these colors. They're some of my go-tos, but they're also some of my older markers. And they also are really subject to some of the problems I've had with markers recently. And honestly, it's because I keep having problems with this, papers, various papers, and problems with my markers, and like issues while I'm coloring and just having to redo things over and over again. That's why this series keeps getting delayed and being finished. It's so frustrating. But yeah, so it happened again with this one. When I laid down the E57 for the base color for her skin tone, it's the lighter color, everything was fine, it looked perfect, and then I came in and shaded with the E59 and something was off. It was so frustrating because later I took both markers and swatched them on another piece of paper to see like what's the problem, what color is exactly the problem. Is the problem a big problem, or is there like a lot of stickiness in the marker, or is there like a problem with the nib? What is it? But the ink came out on the scrap paper perfectly clean. Like there was no problem, there was no stickiness, no streaking. On the original drawing I had already filled out, it was looking kind of goopy and a little bit streaky and sticky, and it looked really ugly and awful, and it's just like, why? Oh, it's so annoying. But if you have a problem like this before with markers and you want to know how to fix it, I do have a video, I'll link in the iCard, you can go check it out. It's an older video, so be warned, but I just go into how like you can fix this type of problem when the ink starts to give you trouble. So I did go about fixing both markers, but I felt like it shouldn't be a problem with this one. I feel like it should have been fine. I think I had played around with it not that long ago, so I'm not sure why this occurred, but it was so annoying. And to fix the drawing, I had to use my colorless blender to just swipe off the problem ink from her skin and just make it smooth again, and then I keep cleaning off the colorless blender to get like the gook off of the marker. Which sounds terrible, but that's kind of what happens. But the problem is that because I'm using colorless blender on a dark color, the skin tone and just ends up looking super blotchy and awful, and at that point I just felt like I had completely ruined this drawing, so why not just keep going? Apparently it was one of those days where I was totally fine with just keep going and see what happens. Worst case, I'm just using this as a practice round and I'll just print out another copy because I have scanned all the line arts. and recolor from there, and hopefully don't have a problem. But luckily, somehow, by the time I'd finished all of the other color, I kind of liked it enough that I thought, let's just see if we can save this. So I grabbed my color pencils and I just started to lay down like a smoother, like a really close color brown, and smoothed out all the problems with the skin tone. And then I felt like it looked really flat though. So I went in with a yellow color just to give it a bit more life, and added a really dark red color on top. I think I used a Tuscan red, and I loved it at that point. At that point, it looked so good because it had like the variation of tones in the skin tone, and the red just pulled out like this life into the skin that just looked so good. So in the end, I actually absolutely love how it turned out, and I've been really loving using the Prismacolor very thin pencils recently. I usually use like Prismacolor Premier pencils and also Polychromos by Faber-Castell pencils, and these are like more waxy pencils that have a lot more pigment and they come off really creamy on the paper. But the bad thing about them is that they can look very uneven because, color pencils. And I do always smear the color pencils with a tissue to try to like smooth it out, because I use markers because I really like how smooth it looks. So I want the color pencil that goes on top to add accent but not leave a trace of like the unevenness behind. But the very thin color pencils, they're not as easy to use because the pigment doesn't lay down as easily. It's like a much harder pigment. There's not as much wax, so it just doesn't grip on the paper and it doesn't leave as much of a trace as the other pencils do. But because it doesn't leave as much of a trace, it actually smears really easily. So you can just like layer tiny little tinges of color on top over and over again. And of course there's a limit before the paper just can't take anymore, but it ends up looking really nice and really smooth compared to the other pencils. So I've been really enjoying that. It actually worked really, really well for the skin tone for this one. So yeah, that is my Fairy of the Evergreen. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And also a big thank you to my berries on Patreon for supporting me and making these videos possible. And if you want to help support me and make videos like this possible, then definitely check out the link in my video description where you can join us on Patreon. Yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching. I will be back really soon with another video with another fairy. Let me know in the comments what you would have drawn for an evergreen fairy. I'm really curious. And if you did draw an evergreen fairy, don't forget to tag me in your drawing so I can definitely check it out, especially on Twitter and Instagram. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.